Okay, Shelley, you're on.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to introduce Alan Thomson. He's been patiently and skillfully facilitating the development of the new comprehensive plan for Whitman County. He is going to be ably helped in the discussion by Mark Story, who's the county engineer.
Alan graduated from the University of Colorado with a master's degree in public administration with the idea that he was going to be a city administrator. And then he came to the Palouse where his wife was enrolling in the graduate program in botany at WSU. And here they are 19 years later. Our luck, he's been the county planner since 2008. And we welcome you to League of Women Voters, Alan Thomson.
Thank you for that gracious introduction, Shelley. It's very nice. Yeah, it's been a long 2 years. It's a standing joke here at Whitman County that I told everybody I'd only be here for 2 years, and I've been hearing nothing but that since, for the last 19 years. This is the longest 2-year period ever. But I am still here, and tonight we're going to talk about Whitman County's current update to our comprehensive plan. I'd like to share a screen, so let's hope that this works. I've got a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to press share screen right now, and let's see what happens. Okay, I pressed everything that was supposed to be pressed. Is anybody seeing?
Yes, looks great. Looks great.
Oh, okay, that's the wrong one. Sorry, I need to hit a different one. So
It's okay.
can you, Shelley, can you go bring me back to the original screen? I don't see
You just go unshare.
well,
or you up at the top.
Hold on.
I'll undo it. I'll do stop participant sharing. How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
there you go.
So let me try this again. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've got the right one. Did it come up?
Yep, looks great.
League of Women Voters, November 4th.
Yes, yes.
All right. So this was a presentation that our consultant put together for us at the beginning of the year. And I just borrowed it and then amended it a little bit for tonight's meeting. Our consultant is LDC. Just want to give you a quick intro to them. They're out of Woodinville on the west side. We hired them to help us through the update for our comprehensive plan. Tonight, I am here, Mark Story, Director of Public Works, and County Engineer is here too. He will help me out on some parts of this if questions arise that are more in his wheelhouse than mine. So why are we here? Why are we doing a comprehensive plan update for the county? Our county, current county comprehensive plan is from 1978. And that basically answers the question. It's long overdue for an update. Comprehensive plans typically look to the 20-year horizon. And we're way overdue with that one. And I've personally, when I've been dealing with this for the last 19 years, there are so many things that are unsatisfactory with it and it's outdated. So we eventually got funding from the county commissioners on this. And last year, we started the process of trying to update this plan. A bit of history for Whitman County, the original comprehensive plan was from 1960. Whitman County had a comprehensive plan adopted in 1960. I wasn't here at that time. It was updated in 1970 and then more fully in 1978. And 78 version of it is what we're working with today. That has been updated several times in my tenure here at Whitman County. One of the benefits of not being, and I'll get to this later on, explain what fully planning and partially planning means a little bit more fully. We are not fully planning, so we can update our development plans and our comprehensive plan whenever. Fully planning counties cannot do that. It's once a year kind of deal with them. So that's one of the advantages of being a partially planning county, and I'll explain that one a little further along. So why do we need to, what's the main thing about why we need to change the comprehensive plan? Well, things changed. Things have changed since 1978. 1978, the attitudes, this was really a very, very agricultural county. It still is to a big degree, but some things have changed since that time. Public attitudes may have changed, needs and experiences, as well as demographics, economy, and resources used. And we definitely have had a lot more people come to this county, since 1978. Pullman's experiencing a lot of growth. So, and that can spill over into the county. So that's one of the reasons why we need to think about updating the comp plan. This will give us an opportunity to take an inventory of what has changed and what remains relevant, identify current and emerging issues that require attention, and identify new goals and priorities based on community feedback. And why do we plan? Well, planning in this country went back, dated way before the early 1900s, but it started to become more formalized in the early 1900s, about the 1920s, when enabling acts, planning enabling acts came into being, and comprehensive plans or and development regulations were created. So why do we plan? Because it makes things more efficient. We need to have a common goal that we're working on with the public. It enhances public decision-making, coordinates community investments, mitigates negative impacts of development and activity, and it improves community outcomes. Policies and regulations that support the community's vision and goals are more likely to be supported by the public and be successful. A big component of this is the public, involving the public in this whole process, because this is a goal, a vision that is shared by not just the people who work for Whitman County, but the public. And that's what we're after, what we've been pursuing through this whole process. And what is comprehensive planning? So goals, objectives, policies, and actions. If you've looked at our draft so far, you'll see all of those words there. Goals, objectives, policies, actions. And provides the community with an opportunity to express its vision for the future of Whitman County. That's one of the big things, is we want to know what the population of Whitman County thinks about how we should grow. So this is a vision exercise, and it's at a wide scale. It's not at the development regulation scale, where all the details about zoning and how you build a house and whatnot, where you build a house. This is the higher up scale of the wishes of the county, how we want to grow. And it's a collaborative effort. Community members, key stakeholders, elected officials, regional organizations, and local jurisdictions. And the result is a guiding document for all of the county's planning efforts. Oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to interrupt me at any time, just said this up front, please do. If there's something that you're curious about or you're not sure about, just jump on in and let me help you on, help understand that.
I want to just add, Alan, if you just press the space bar, you should be able to like temporarily unmute yourself and speak.
Oh, just press the space bar, okay. All right, so why does the county need comprehensive plan? Well, there are a couple of different things here. So the Growth Management Act, which came into being in 1990, RCW 3670A, that compelled everybody in the state of Washington to do manage land and resources. Before that time, there was the Planning Enabling Act, which is what we currently use since we're not a fully planning county. And that was before the Growth Management Act. So the Growth Management Act in 1990 made us, required us to plan for critical areas and natural resource lands. And that's the main difference between fully planning and partially planning. So maybe I should explain the fully planning part right now. So in 1990, when the Growth Management Act came into being, all of the counties in Washington were given a choice. Well, not all of them. There was a choice. If you had 50,000 folks population, you were automatically put into the fully planning category. Those counties that were less than 50,000 population were given a choice, and also given us an incentive. There was money involved with this, grant money involved with this. So at that time, I wasn't the planner, that was Mark Bordson. The county, Whitman County, was faced with a decision because we did not meet that 50,000 population number. So the choice was, do we want to opt in to the fully planning category or not? And Whitman County chose not to. And that was a commissioner decision at that time. So what's the difference between fully planning and partially planning? Fully planning is a lot more involved. There are urban growth boundaries involved with that, and that is each town in that county that opted in had to come up with a plan to have an urban growth boundary, which would be where you could expand, the town or the city could expand into. And then beyond that boundary, it was not to be fully developed. It was just left alone, basically. So that was the main difference. And Whitman County didn't choose to be fully planning, which unfortunately for RJ, I like that idea. A fully planning county has a lot more work to do and more complicated, and the cities, well, RJ might differ in his opinion on this. I'd be anxious to hear a little bit about why he thinks Pullman, he would like to see Pullman be, the county be fully planning, and how that would be different for Pullman. But right now we are only partially planning. So our only requirement is to have a critical areas ordinance. We've got to protect critical areas and natural resource lands. So critical areas are wetlands, aquifer recharge, fish and wildlife conservation areas, frequently flooded areas, floodplains, and geologically hazardous areas. Natural resources and agricultural conservation. So forestry, agricultural, fisheries, and mining. The only things in that category really that are pertinent to Whitman County is agricultural and mining. We don't have any fisheries, and we don't have much in the way of forestry. So in natural resources, we have to protect agriculture and mining, and then the critical areas, the 5 critical areas there. And our original comp plan, we had certain elements: land use, transportation, economic development, public services, facilities and utilities, parks and rec. So what is a vision? That encompasses what county citizens value the most about their community. Captures the shared image of what community members want the county to become in 20 years. Community members work together to achieve the vision. Goals and policies of the comprehensive plan are then based on that vision. At the beginning of this process, we had we sent out a questionnaire, made it available to the public to get feedback, and that is what we really try to. That's very necessary for us to try and figure out what direction the county wants to go in, the population wants to go in. Okay, plan relationship with other documents. So at the bottom of this triangle is the overarching state mandate from the Growth Management Act, the RCW 3670A, and then on top of that, the Whitman County Comp Plan, and then development regulations. And public input is always involved in all of this. Development regulations. So if the Whitman County Comp Plan is kind of like the vision of where we want to, how we want to develop, how we want to grow. Then the development regulations come from that. And that's where you get down to the street level, where you've got the zoning, the setbacks, in Whitman County's case, where houses can be built, the number of houses that can be built. So that's the development regulations that have to be developed from the comprehensive plan. The two have to be in concert. What issues are included in a comp plan? Well, land use, environmental quality and natural resources, economic development, parks, trails and rec, public services, facilities and utilities and transportation. So those are the main elements of the comprehensive plan. And then of course the details get filled in. If you've had a chance to look at our comprehensive plan, the one that we're working on, you'll see all of those land use elements and all of those elements rather that we're working on, and we're trying to fill them out. So the consultant gave us the bare bones of this, and the Planning Commission right now is working their way through looking at all of these elements and editing them and figuring if it's appropriate or not. So we're en route to going through the whole document, and then eventually it'll go to the county commissioners. So land use, this is just one of the elements. So this is just an example of one of the elements that we'll go into a little bit more detail on that. Goals, objectives, policies, and actions supporting the kind of uses that should be protected, emphasized, and encouraged as the county changes over the next 20 years. Analysis of existing population and land use. So agriculture is big in Whitman County. We do have rural residential. We have urban residential in the little towns, the unincorporated towns, for instance, and we have industrial and commercial areas. Analysis of future development and uses. Cluster zoning in the Pullman area. Siting of renewable energy facilities and further development of the Pullman-Moscow corridor. Commercial uses within the ag zone. Those are all parts of the land use element that we're working on. And then environmental quality and natural resources. So a little bit more detail on that. The revised Code of Washington, 3670A050. This is what they tell us we're responsible for. Guidelines to classify ag, forest, and mineral land in critical areas. So in coordination with the Department of Natural Resources regarding forest and mineral lands and the Department of Ecology regarding critical areas, Whitman County uses best available science to identify and preserve sensitive areas. From that, we've got the Whitman County Code of Ordinances and Title IX, which is our critical areas ordinance, where all the environmental regulations are housed. And that's what we have to follow when somebody wants to develop something in the county. And again, those critical areas include wetlands, aquifer recharge areas, fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, frequently flooded areas, and geologically hazardous areas. Another element is economic development. So it creates jobs and supports county government. Most of the economic development of this area is within Pullman, and that's pretty obvious. We have a couple of areas like the corridor district between Moscow and Pullman that we're trying to develop. So that creates jobs and supports the county government. Business environment is influenced by government activities as well as availability and condition of local infrastructure, road, air, and water. This involves a collaboration between the county and Port of Whitman County, SWEDA, which is the Southeast Washington Economic Development Association, and other local chambers of commerce is key. The Port of Whitman County and SWEDA are really the main economic development drivers in the county. We don't have an economic development department, but people do come to us wanting to maybe start a business. So if they come to the planning office, we'll help them along with that. But the Port and SWEDA have a bigger part to play in bringing new businesses to our area. And develop policies that focus on supply of suitable lands, job creation and retention, identification / funding for key infrastructure improvements, identification / execute partnerships, economic development programs, education and funding. So they're all part of the economic development element. Now, another element, parks and recreation in our comprehensive plan. That's important too. They provide a number of benefits to county residents, health benefits, social benefits, economic value, improves tax base, local property values, encourages business retention and attraction. So this definitely is an important part of our comprehensive plan, because we do have county parks and areas where the public can take use of. So who do we involve in all of this process of redoing our comprehensive plan? Is a lot of stakeholders. We've worked together to try and bring all those people into the fold, so to inform them of what we're doing. And I personally created a database, an email stream where I could send out notice to a lot of people about what we're doing. But these are kind of like an example of the main people involved, the main entities involved. So economic development agencies, the Port of Whitman County, Ritzville Warehouse, Whitman County Association of Realtors, Schweitzer, excuse me, Southeast Washington Economic Development Association, and then public health and social services, ag and farming, natural resources, critical areas, transportation people, parks and recs, and cities and schools. So we tried to get the message out to as all of these people and many more, and get their feedback on what we were doing. And as I said, initially, we had a survey, which we posted early in the year, that started out in January, wanting to get feedback from the population. So January 19th, since that time, we actually got 280 responses, which was pretty amazing, actually. A lot of people did participate in the survey and gave us their feedback. And it is still up on our webpage. So if anybody is interested, you can go onto the webpage and see the questions, all the questions, and then the responses. We have all of those responses on there too. And here are some of the results from that. What are the top priorities? That we asked the question, what are the top priorities you believe Whitman County should focus on over the next 20 years? There's the result right there. The largest one was diversity of business and jobs. And then education and preservation of agriculture came close by.
Alan, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How good was the response to your survey? How satisfied were you?
I think very satisfied, to be honest with you, because from prior attempts like trying to get public responses, I think this was we knocked it out of the park. 280 responses was pretty good.
Thank you.
I would just add to that even our consultant said that we had one of the highest levels of response of most compared to most of the people they work with, because people just don't respond to these surveys. And so this number actually, although it looks small, is really quite large considering what we were trying to get.
Yeah, great. We were very happy with that, Bobby, and the consultant was able to craft a lot of the details and those elements because of the responses we got. And of course, we used the original, well, it's still our current comprehensive plan, as part of the filling in of the new one, but the public responses helped us tremendously in trying to figure out what to say and what to do in that comp plan and the new one. Here's a couple of other results from the survey. How long have you lived in the county? Is preservation of natural resources important to the future of the county? You can see the percentages there. The key, which is not showing there, the deep blue is, on the right there, is preservation of natural resources important? Deep blue is yes, so 80.4% said yes. The lighter blue is no, and the green is indifferent, other, it says. And these are other of the questions that we asked in the survey. In what ways has Whitman County changed over the past 40 years? Is there a balance between agricultural, commercial, and residential interests? If not, what do you think can restore it? Where should commercial development be allowed in Whitman County? How can we allow business flexibility in agricultural zones? What are your thoughts on cluster zoning? Should we keep it where it is, remove it, or expand it? So these questions and many more guided us in how we crafted the update. So this is, you can see why this is important. We kind of respond to what the public is telling us. Private development and cluster zoning. Well, cluster zoning, we started doing clustering in 2004, 2005, when we started thinking about putting a cluster residential zone in place. And originally what that was is within half a mile of the city limits of Pullman, any quarter section that touched, that half mile touched from the city boundary, was brought into what we would call the cluster opportunity zone. And then we opened up, then we put an ordinance in place, and then sat back and waited to see what happened. And we got quite a good amount of response initially. Kitzmiller Road was very popular, Sunshine Road, and that's where clusters are predominantly, off of Kitzmiller Road and some off of Sunshine Road, a little bit off of the Pullman Moscow Airport Road. And it went really well up until 2007, 2008. And what happened then, some of you may remember, is the economy tanked. And that kind of put the brakes on any future development there in Clusterville. Nothing happened there for a long time because of that. But before the economy tanked, there were a lot of clusters created, parcels created, and that's what is what you see today out there. A lot of those little communities outside of Pullman came about because of that. We got a little bit of resurgent activity on clustering just before we created, agreed upon, and finished the JPAC, the agreement with Pullman on the taxation on that area. So that kind of shut down things, because on that map there, when you see the white line, that is the JPAC agreement area. And Mark, do you want to explain a little bit more about that one?
Well, just maybe from a satellite perspective, is the tax sharing agreement area was an attempt to make it beneficial both for the city of Pullman and for Whitman County to promote development in those areas by sharing tax revenues and not making it a competition. And one of the outflows from that Mark Workman and I worked on was to try and start developing the funds to extend services out into these areas, water, sewer, things that are difficult to pay for unless you have a lot of private sponsors. But we were trying to seed some money to get that tax sharing area the capability of having some extension of services. So some of the tax revenues generated would be put in a fund for future extension of services. So we're only, what, 6, maybe 7 years into that now. They're starting to build a little tiny bit of money there, but we knew it would be about a 25-year process. So I don't know, maybe that's a little too generic of a description, but it sort of made it so that we are all in the same boat together with the same goals.
And yeah, thanks, Mark. And you can see within that white area, right about the middle, you'll see some orange parcels there. That is just off of Kitzmiller Road. So part of the tax sharing agreement was that within the white line, within the tax sharing area, no more clustering. That was part of the agreement. And so the yellow outside of the white line is still eligible for cluster development. But a lot of it over on Kitzmiller Road area, especially, and Airport Road, is now off limits for clustering. So one of the big questions we were asking the public, wanting their feedback on clustering, do you think it's worthwhile, or would you be agreeable to expanding the cluster opportunity zone outside of the tax sharing area? And we got some positive feedback on that. So that's something that we, the county, will consider in the future. But we had to write something in on the comprehensive plan to allow for cluster development, which we've done. So we may or may not expand the cluster area, but that's definitely a possibility. And then at the bottom there, development within the county is pretty much limited because of water. So we don't have any public water outside of Pullman in the unincorporated area. So everything, anybody who wants to develop something, whether it be a business or build a residence, has to get an exempt well from the Department of Ecology, get a permit for an exempt well, which means that you can have a residence or a business and withdraw up to 5,000 gallons a day without having to get a water right. That's essentially what that means. So that applies to pretty much the whole of the agricultural district in Whitman County, which is most of the county. And we don't have the ability to develop large residential developments, for instance. That's why all of the main housing is inside Pullman. We don't have the water to do that. That's the main thing. And also the original plan back in 1978 protected agricultural activities pretty thoroughly and discouraged housing out in the county. We don't discourage it anymore, but it's very limited as to where you can build and how many you can build. And clustering really is the only way you can have like a 4-pack. You have to have a minimum of about 20 acres, at least 20 acres of land, subdivide it into 4 buildable parcels, and then you can have 4 houses that are grouped fairly close together. That is only in the opportunity zone. So the yellow in this map, that's the only place you can do this. The rest of the county is pretty much 1 house is all you can do, because the new code that development code that we put in place in 2007 has a couple of different things in there that does not encourage housing out there. We've got the view shed rule. So all houses need to be 1,500 feet apart. That was our attempt at trying to regulate where houses go. So if you want to build a house, you have to be 1,500 feet away from any other house on the landscape, which pretty much limits a lot of housing out there. Or there's an alternative called a grouping. If there is a house on the landscape out there that was built before 2007, when we created the new development code, then you could use that as a starting point to build another house, but it has to be less than 300 feet from the original house built before 2007 to where the new house would be. So you could do a short plat that way and have houses closer together. So the objective was to push houses further apart, or keep where there was original houses, keep any new houses close together. And the idea here was to try and protect ag land. So that's our current development code at the moment for building houses. And water rights are a key to that too. You can only have up to 5,000 gallons a day.
Is that,
So-
Alan? I have a question.
Yeah,
Is
go ahead.
that 5,000 gallons per day for the development for the 4-pack, or is it for each house?
No, that's for the 4-pack. So the Department of Ecology's regulations, it's a, if it's a development, ecology classifies anything as a development. If it is a development, that development gets 5,000 gallons a day, period. So one owner, 4 lots, that's a development. So all 4 of those lots have to share that 5,000 gallons. So that gives you about 1,250 gallons a day per house. And that's written into our development code.
Then what about out in the county where you have one-offs? You just have one house.
5,000 gallons a day. And nobody uses it. Well, I'm not going to say nobody. It's very hard to use 5,000 gallons a day for just a typical residential structure. I'm hazarding a guess here, but a typical house might not even use 500 gallons a day. Okay. Unless you're really water, and you can only water up to half an acre of property. That's part of the ecology rules in the WACs. So you're not really going to be able to use 5,000 gallons a day, which is pretty good. It's pretty generous, but that is what the regulation is. So when we started this process, COVID was definitely raging. And so that was at the beginning of this year and the end of last year. So we had to take that in consideration due to COVID-19. We wanted to have traditional in-person meetings, but because of the COVID restrictions, that wasn't going to be possible. So when we were trying to figure out our timeline here for 2020, we knew upfront that all meetings were going to be by Zoom. Zoom was just starting to take off. So we were getting geared up to use Zoom for public meetings, which is not the traditional way to do it. I don't know if anybody's ever been involved in a comprehensive plan update, maybe in Pullman, where you would have one venue and the consultant and staff would set up stations where you could go to and you could talk to individuals there about the process. And that would be face to face. We couldn't do that initially this past year. So we had to set things up differently through COVID. And with the hope that restrictions would ease middle of 2020, and then we could have public, in-person meetings. Well, that never materialized either. We've not had any face-to-face meetings with the public during this whole process. Everything's been by Zoom. So we had to do things differently. The consultant did a great job in doing some meetings. They conducted the meetings, the public meetings, and the workshops, and all the information was put on the county website. And we had the meetings online, and we informed the public, emails, listings, surveys, and we were hoping to have in-person meetings by the summer of 2021. Sorry, I'd said 2020 before that. 2021, which never happened. It has not happened yet, and I don't see it happening before we finish this process, because the courthouse now, where we hold these meetings, is now overtaken by the courthouse, by the courts. So no, I don't think we're going to have any in public person-to-person meetings yet. And this was our projected timeline. And we're off on this a little bit, as you can see. We're not quite there. We were hoping to have this all done by the end of the year. And now we're at the beginning of November, so that's looking a little bit pessimistic rather, about getting that done. Well, we opened up with a virtual meeting on March 10th of this year. And then after that, we had 3 more public meetings, virtual public workshops, June 2nd, June 16th, and the 30th. The consultant did those meetings. They put together the PowerPoints, one of which I'm pilfering right now, and then conducted the meetings. And then after that, we once we had a lot of the framework filled in for the comp plan, we started taking it to the Planning Commission. So the process from now until we get to the end is that we're having meetings, and every 2 weeks, typically right now, we're meeting with the Planning Commission to go through the draft. And hopefully we'll get through all of it before the end of the year. And then the next step would be to have a public hearing with the Planning Commission. And if the Planning Commission agrees to the final draft, then we send that over to the Board of County Commissioners, and they will have a public hearing and the opportunity to adopt it if they think they want to do so. That basically is it. So all of the information that we're working on right now is on our website, on the Planning Department's webpage, under the Planning Commission. Most of you have probably tapped into that already, but this is where it is. And of course, you can always contact me if you have any questions about the process or where we're at. And you all get an invite to all of the Planning Commission meetings. And we like to hear from you whenever, so you can come and join us in the Zoom meetings. We're probably going to have several more before we're able to get finished. We have gone over 2 of the elements, the land use element and the transportation element. We just finished the transportation element of reviewing it last night with the Planning Commission, and we actually did start on Parks and Rec last night. So we're moving better, a little further along, faster along than we were initially. The land use element was a real chore to get through. Some of you were with us through that, and you can understand why I'm saying that, but it took a long time to get through the land use. The rest of the elements seem to be going a little quicker. So we're hoping to finish up before the end of the year, and then we'll start the public hearing processes at that time. And I'll entertain any questions that anybody has.
Can you unshare your screen right now?
Okay. You're asking me technical questions, Bobby. Where is here? There you go. So hit share screen again. It says share. Oh, wait a minute. Bobby, are you muted?
I'm muted, yes.
Okay, do I hit share screen again?
No, you're off.
I'm off. There you go.
Everything's good. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. That was great. Shelley? Are there any questions from anybody?
How are we doing?
You're doing great. I thought it was super interesting.
Yeah, but how are we doing with the update? Anybody got feedback on that? Come on, Shelley, don't be shy.
What a quiet group tonight.
Shelley's not
because
even unmuting herself. She's staying silent.
Well, I listened to the blow by blow.
Yes, you have.
Every couple of weeks, and so I guess I've turned it over in my head enough. I don't have any questions right now.
Yep.
You've done a nice job, I will say, protecting critical areas through the plan. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah. It's easy to do because the critical area ordinance is pretty clear. One of the curveballs that hit us was the Police Prairie stuff. That was a new one that we had to kind of do a little bit of dancing and jigging around to try and figure out, because that was not on our original critical areas horizon until it came about 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, when it really came on our radar. So we're trying our best to adapt to that one, which has been proven a little tricky at times.
That's great. Any other questions from anyone? Well, Alan, I think you've done a great job too. I've attended a couple of the meetings. Unfortunately, then I started working on Wednesday night, but I believe Lisa Carloy has attended, and I think it's been really great that we have Dave Gibney, who's on the Planning Commission in Pullman, and also on the Planning Commission at Whitman County, because I think that that's really helped with communication between the two entities, so that you can work hand in glove, which, you know, we're all in this together. So
Yes.
that was
And
great.
I agree with you. Dave has been a tremendous help. I mean, he's a very
Mhm.
knowledgeable guy and he's not shy about sharing his opinion.
Mm-mm, not at all. And I would also add, I think that the plan, doing it this way over Zoom has probably gotten more participation and has, it certainly, because people don't have to get ready to go, you know, all the benefits of meeting on
Yeah.
Zoom. I think it's been a really good process. The PowerPoints, you can, you know, really read them and then you can record it and you can look at it later. You can look at the meeting later. I'm assuming your meetings are recorded.
Yes, they all are recorded. And,
Yeah.
and the minutes are always posted on the website too. So you can read
Right.
the minutes and get the blow by blow of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're adapting to it. I think there are pros and cons, and I think the pros right now outweigh the cons. Some people are anxious to get face to face again. And I can understand that, but I agree with you. You know, I think more people are participating, and it's not like sitting in the auditorium where you have to
Mhm.
kind of pay attention all the time. You can
Mhm.
switch off a little bit and go get a glass of wine or whatever, and then come back. You know, so it works. It really does work for a lot of people, and you don't have to travel to Colfax.
Well, yeah, that's a big one. You don't have to travel to Colfax. And I just think it's a little less intimidating personally.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Jan, you had a question?
I do have a question, and I was just wondering, I noticed you had some rules about the water use, but I'm wondering if there's some concern about the overall water level in our area.
In
I've
the
heard
on
from
the
people-
in the aquifers.
Yes.
Oh yes, Mark Story, Peaback man.
Was that a question?
It was a question.
Yes,
What's our situation? I mean, you know, we're doing all this development and I hear that you've got some guidelines and rules, which is great, but I was just curious what the situation is overall.
well, unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure which, the state regulates all water use. We do not regulate any water use. All we can do is encourage people to conserve water or to use less water or, you know, limit some development where it doesn't work. But as far as the permit exempt wells in the unincorporated area, that's all governed by the state, not by us.
Hmm.
But I do sit on the PBAC committee and I have for almost 20 years now. And I'm as concerned as anyone about future water resources. The aquifers are still dropping. We are mining water. It is not replenishing at the rate we use it. And it has to be solved at some point. And that's a critical issue for all of us because we may have 30 or 40 or 50 straws, but there's still just one glass that we're taking it out of. So,
So it
yeah,
is.
so I don't think I've answered your question, but that kind of puts it in perspective.
Well, I think you answered it. We don't have a whole lot of control over it here, or you don't, but it is an issue and it's dropping.
Yes, I'm very concerned. It's not immediate, but it's extremely important.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a concern. The Department of Ecology regulates, as Mark said, regulates water. And in some parts of the state, they have imposed restrictions on how much water can be withdrawn from particular basins, water basins. We don't have any restrictions in Whitman County at this moment in time, but like Mark says, we're taking water out of the aquifer. We're not replenishing it very well. So it's all up to ecology. That's something that could happen in the future.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, Alan, thank you. Are there any other questions? Because if not, we'll move on to the city comp plan. Good job. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Very interesting. Jessica? You're muted.
Okay, got it. So it is my pleasure to introduce RJ Lott, our City of Pullman Planning Director. RJ has had an 18-year career in Eastern Washington, including land use planning experience with most of that time spent in Benton County in the Tri-Cities, and most recently, of course, as planning director here in Pullman. what I had learned is that he has experience in a variety of areas ranging from planning fields, both short and long range planning, project management, grant writing, working with consultants, among others, etc. You can imagine how busy he is. In order to fulfill his capacity as certified planner, he completed 2 bachelor's degrees, one in urban planning from the University of Utah and another in business management, as well as master's degree in public administration from our arch enemy, no, not really, RJ, Arizona State University. He obtained the designation as certified public manager also from ASU. And he said that he doesn't have too much free time, but he enjoys traveling, comedy, something that you probably need, RJ. And so some distance running, what I favor considerably, golf, college football, etc. And he follows commercial aircraft and airports. And I thought it was interesting. He got married recently in Bali, Indonesia, and gained 2 wonderful stepdaughters, Charlie and Randy. The family also has a wonderful German Shepherd that I want to meet in one of these meetings, named Molly. So thank you so much for participating, RJ. Really appreciate all the time that you have put into this effort. And there's RJ.
Hi, thank you so much, Jessica. That was a great introduction. And I see that Alan is back just in time for me to ask where my glass of wine is. I'm waiting, and I don't want to be teased like that, Alan. So if you could drop that by, I would appreciate it.
Would you like red or white?
It doesn't matter. I'm not picky, but beggars can't be choosers. So yes, Alan did a great job. Honestly, I don't intend to speak as long as Alan did. And my presentation tonight is going to be a little different, not as in depth or as comprehensive as Alan went, no pun intended, but let's get after it. And I do prefer face-to-face communications. One of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett. He said that if we can't meet face-to-face, we'll never meet eye to eye. So I think there is some value in seeing folks in person, especially with me being relatively new in town. I am definitely eager to meet all of you in person at some point. So with that being said, let's start this. So you should be able to see the title page there. So unlike Whitman County, the city of Pullman does have their comprehensive plan adopted. And well, there we go. So the first comprehensive plan dates back to 1961. So just after the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower. It was updated about 10 years later in 1972 with a revision in 1982. Prior to this adoption of our comprehensive plan, the next previous one was in 1999. So we had a 22 year drought, if you will, between comprehensive plans. I'd like to see about a 10-year cycle with comprehensive plans. I think that's a good rhythm. I think that 20 plus years, and then with Whitman County being even longer, it quickly becomes outdated. As Alan mentioned, it becomes outdated on a number of topics. All right, next slide. So the 2021 version, as many of you may know, the process started back in 2014. So this was a long time coming. This was certainly the work of Pete Dickinson when he was here. So I really just showed up and then took all the praise. So I can't really take all of the credit here. So there's been a lot of folks, just as Whitman County attested to, a lot of folks that participated through really quite a lengthy period of time. So the process started back in 2014, as you can see, with a group of neighborhood meetings when there was no pandemic. In 2017, there was some land use scenarios developed, and then those got shelved. The process was interrupted in 2018 by the loss of the original consultant and Pete's retirement there soon after. Resumed in 2020 when I came on board and really became the top priority of planning staff here at the city of Pullman in 2021. So throughout the year, throughout the calendar year of 2021, we really did work quite a bit with the Planning Commission, just the same way that Whitman County is doing now. As some of you may know, we had special meetings, I believe, from March or April through August and into September. So we really almost doubled up the work with the Planning Commission. We did get a final approval, a recommendation of approval by the Planning Commission in August. And then in September, it was officially adopted by the City Council. If you do want to take a look at the final product, it is available on our website. And if you need help locating that, please let me know. I'll point you in the right direction. However, a simple Google search should get you there.
RJ, I just want to commend the Planning Commission for the hard work that they did on reviewing every word in that document. I mean, they were very thoughtful.
Yes, it was tedious, to be honest, and
Yep.
some of it a little exhaustive, but the final product, I think, Bobby, you can agree that the final product is pretty good. I think everyone's pleasantly pleased with it.
I agree.
So similar to Whitman County, there's elements of the comprehensive plan. Ours is similar, but a little different. The first is the plan foundation, vision and framework, land use, which also took a large chunk of our time as well. I think the interest and the input on that element alone probably took up as much energy and time as the other elements combined, I might say. Then it went to community design, housing, transportation, parks and open space, capital facilities, and then finally the implementation. So like I said, the focus on the land use element was pretty heavy. It took a close look at the conditions and trends, including the existing land use, the urban growth areas. So that is an area where the city can annex and expand. And I probably should have put a map of that up here in this presentation, but I didn't. And it's really an area that it's quite interesting to see where the city can be headed in the next 10 or 20 years. Next is the Shoreline Master Program, which I happened to speak to Alan about just a few months ago. And we'll have a new Shoreline Master Program here relatively soon that'll combine Whitman County with Pullman and likely the rest of the cities within Whitman County. Critical areas, which Alan, I feel like you stole my thunder on so many things. So you'll get the larger percentage of the royalty check later on. The critical areas, which Alan outlined, like I said, natural heritage, the conservation there, economic development, land use plan, and then finally the zoning. So some of the opportunities and constraints, there's a high priority, and this is one of the reasons I came to Pullman, was the quality of life. You know, how do you balance growth with the quality of life? As a planner, there's a long-standing saying that if a city isn't growing, it's probably dying. So with that in mind, how do we grow in a way that keeps our quality of life here in Pullman, our character? Some of us don't want to be a town of 75,000. I can certainly understand that. Some of us don't want us to continue to be a small farming town. We are the smallest city in the Pac-12 conference, even though we'll never compete with Los Angeles or Seattle. The natural environment, it's obviously some great scenic areas within Pullman. How do we balance that with, as you can see in the photo below, the view, the light and glare conditions? How do you balance the light that is in commercial or industrial areas And then lastly, the Americans with Disability Accessibility, which really is an important feature for all of us. So this is where it gets into the part that I feel has the most value. The goals and policies really drive the development of the municipal code and some of our other developments, such as large subdivisions. So I talked a little bit earlier about growth and annexation. So goal land use 1, LU means land use, it says create a vibrant and compact city with living, shopping, working, and recreation opportunities that are supported by a multimodal transportation system and framed by land conserved for agriculture production. I think that one right there is really what we all want Pullman to be, or all want Pullman to have. Losing my voice here a little bit. Goal land use 2, annex land within Pullman's defined urban growth area, which is essentially required and really is logical. And that would be considering service boundaries and effectiveness. Service boundaries means, can the city provide service such as water, sewer, police services, fire services? We don't want to annex areas of Whitman County that we can't serve. So that is always something to keep in mind. The needs and desires of the community. Once again, what does the community want to be? This is probably a time where I should emphasize that this comprehensive plan is not my plan. It's not city staff's plan. It's not even the city council's plan. It's really all of our plan. And that every stakeholder really does have a hand in the process, a stake in the end result. The public participation, and once again, kudos to Alan and Whitman County for the large number of folks that were able to participate in their process. That's always really a difficult thing to conquer. The comprehensive plan really is not the most attractive item to get folks out of their routine on an evening and come down and comment. It's not something that's really eye-catching. It's unfortunately kind of passive in a way. And a lot of folks say, how does this directly affect me? So to get folks to participate is both challenging and very, very important. With neighborhoods in mind, goal land use 4, plan for cohesive and livable neighborhoods. For me, cohesive and livable means connectivity. There are some places in Pullman that quite honestly are challenging to get to at certain times of the day. I'm sure we can all identify where those might be. The unique characteristics such as topography or where college students may live, those type of things. The needs for housing, transportation, services, and amenities. Let me just hit on housing there for a minute. So Alan asked earlier this evening why I thought it might be beneficial for the city of Pullman to participate in the state of Washington's Growth Management Act. Alan's correct in his statement that it really is an extra round of work for staff, and I wouldn't necessarily look forward to that, but what I would look forward to is having the ability to participate in some of the state's housing programs. Affordable housing in Pullman, such as so many other places in the state of Washington, really can be a challenge. As we know, vacancy rates in Pullman are slightly above 0, which is impressive, but it also presents challenges that are difficult to overcome for those that may be low income or new to the community. So having the ability to provide housing for an array of individuals, whether they are college students or working adults or those that may be retired, it's all very important, and it's really a basic need. For residential uses, goal land use 5, create comfortable neighborhoods and encourage residential diversity. Goal 6, develop compact and well-designed high-density residential districts. You may ask why high density? Well, if we can create neighborhoods that use fewer acres of Whitman County, and we can preserve those agricultural areas or those critical areas or those view sheds of Moscow Mountain, let's say, then that definitely adds to the character of the community. Land use 7, strengthen and grow the economic base of the community. I think that probably speaks for itself. There's definitely a value if we can diversify economically. We tend to lean heavily on WSU, obviously, and SEL. So if we could diversify out of those two areas, I think it creates a stronger economic base for the community. Commercially, offer a variety of goods and services in commercial districts that are readily accessible and attractive. Some might not know, but there is a food desert in Pullman, so readily accessible. You could refer to the areas downtown as being not near a grocery store. If you live somewhere in the vicinity of Maine, the nearest grocery store is south on Bishop or further north along Grand. There isn't really anything within walking distance, just as there are many areas of residential areas, such on Military Hill or Sunnyside Hill, where it may be easy walking one direction, meaning downhill, but getting back up would certainly be a challenge. So having the diversity in commercial districts, and it may be something simple as a neighborhood market where kids in the summer could ride their bikes and get a popsicle or a candy bar. I think there's some good value there as well. Downtown, as some of you may know, the city has put a tremendous amount of effort and time into the downtown area. Recently, the city council adopted the downtown master plan, and that's also available on our website. If you need some assistance locating that, I can help you out as well. So maintaining a downtown that is vital to commercial entertainment and a mixed-use hub serving Pullman and other communities meaning being a draw for those that may live in Palouse or Albion or Colfax even. Industrial land use 10, encourage industrial businesses that provide high wage jobs and produce high value products in an environmentally sustainable and non-polluting manner. Once again, the environment's obviously very important. High wage jobs, very important. Probably don't need to go too much into that. The airport, which is another asset that the city has put a tremendous amount of time and dollars into. If you've driven by it lately, it almost seems like it takes different shape on a daily basis. So promote safe and efficient use of the Pullman Moscow Regional Airport by minimizing incompatible land uses. So in this area, and this may be the biggest change to our land use map, this has changed from a commercial area to more of an industrial area. And I think that with the hopefully increase aircraft movements at the airport, along with upgrades to Airport Road, that eventually this area really could be a new industrial part of the city that may not have been even considered just a few years ago. Public uses support community members and businesses with necessary quality public facilities and utilities. Mark mentioned a few moments ago the declining aquifer, and that's obviously a concern. There's been the PBAC, which is met yearly for, well, obviously for a long time. I don't know when it was started, but they met just a few weeks ago. So there is some initiative and drive there to create that water utility that can serve the Palouse area for quite some time. Alternatives to the aquifer are incredibly expensive. I don't know if any of you folks have taken a closer look at that, but it costs more than a bottle of wine supplied by Whitman County. I'm glad some of you are still there, that you're still hanging in there with the wine references. It's a good theme. We're almost to Friday. So Land Use 13, work in partnership with Washington State University to support its objectives. It's important for me that Washington State is successful. And I think that Washington State feels the same way about Pullman. You really can't have one without the other. So making sure that it's a thriving university that is actively positioning itself for a successful future. Obviously, the city of Pullman is in a great position for the future by hiring its recent planning director. But other than that, there are some issues where having a healthy relationship with WSU on a number of levels. And I think the current administration here with the city of Pullman and the administration up at WSU have put a considerable amount of time trying to, maybe I shouldn't say repair damaged relationships, but really trying to create an environment where there's at least healthy communication. I know that's a top priority of myself, as well as the city administrator. Public health, promote active and healthy lifestyles through land use planning and community facilities siting. For instance, healthy lifestyles, we're working right now on a bike and pedestrian plan. In the introduction, it noted that I was a runner. I still try to do that, even though it looks like the weather has made a turn for the worse. But this past summer was a great summer to be outside. So having those trails in, having those facilities at the parks that we have, it really is a community asset that a lot of folks can enjoy.
It was good days, and it was a great time to be outside, except on those days they closed the swimming pools.
Yeah, there were some hot days. That's for sure.
And air quality.
Yes, actually, I didn't think this August was as bad as it could have been with how dry and hot it was. I guess I was okay with the number of smoky days we had. I know some previous years have been quite worse, but anyways, natural resources, protect, enhance, and conserve Pullman's natural resources. Water resources that we just spoke about, ensure a sustainable and safe water supply, including stormwater quality. I think that's something that kind of is under the radar, is the stormwater. How do we handle that with some of the construction that's been around, with days like today with the substantial rains? How do we mitigate those issues that come out of construction areas? Wetlands and habitat. We do have some wetlands in the area, not a lot as you would see compared to the west side, obviously. So those wetlands, the riparian areas, significant plant and wildlife. I like seeing some of the fish and some of the turtles there on the South Fork downtown. I think that's an incredible asset that's unique, and I would like to see that stick around for quite some time. Frequently flooded areas. So this is a topic that obviously was a big attention getter 3 or 4 years ago with the floods along Grand. Many may know, or not know, I should say, that most of downtown is in a flood zone. So there are some specific steps that we take with construction to minimize some of the impacts that a flood in the spring may have. So minimizing that flood damage to both private and public property really does play a benefit long-term, not just in flood insurance rates, but through a variety of avenues, no pun intended. Promote open space and recreational uses of floodplain areas. How do we use those areas which are within a 100-year flood zone, which are difficult to build, but still utilize them for recreational uses? The trail there along the South Fork is a good example of that. Almost done here. So geologically hazardous areas, such as areas of steep slopes or areas that may be part of a rock slide. Protect lives and property by limiting development in those hazardous areas. I don't think that we've ever lost a life, but some of the issues with retaining walls, I'm sure you've seen some of those around town that aren't necessarily vertical anymore. How do we keep those in check? How do we minimize, or even more importantly, how do we utilize the ones that are there. With the shorelines, preserved shoreline areas, while assuring public access to the water in accordance with the city's shoreline master program. I spoke a little about that earlier on. And now I think Al and I anticipate teaming up with the other jurisdictions within the county to create a overall shoreline master program. So that's it for me. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to share those or answer those. Other than that, I think that's it for me. If you do come across a question later on, please feel free to call or email or stop by. If you haven't seen the new City Hall, I'll give you a brief tour. I'll tell you a few jokes and we'll have a great time.
Any questions? Jan?
I just have one small one. I was just curious, you referred to a comfortable neighborhood. I'm not sure what a comfortable neighborhood is. What does that mean?
That's a good question. If I said that, I'm not sure. I think a comfortable.
It was one of your goals.
Oh, I'll have to go back and take a look. I think I think comfortable means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I know that my stepkids want to have a place to go out and play. I know that a lot of people have challenges with the topography. I know that a lot of people don't like the noise for downtown. So the neighborhood issues really vary depending upon where you are. So I'm sorry, Jan, I'll have to go back and reread that and see what I meant when I wrote that.
Well, I think safety certainly is one of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Safety, yeah.
Jane?
Are you going to do any more plans for like soccer fields and things like that? Because we're very limited. I mean, obviously Moscow has much better facilities than Pullman for our children.
Yes. I personally will not, but I think that Parks and Recreation may be doing something here in the near future. I'll have to check in with them. But you're correct. I think that if we had a larger quantity or better quality of fields, that would certainly be an asset and could even bring tourists to town during the summer months when it's relatively quiet here.
Agreed.
Can I make? Oh, can I
Go
make
ahead,
a
Jessica.
comment? RJ, thank you so much for your presentation. And I'm glad that David is here because David was also as chair of the commission. He was invaluable in his leadership. So I really appreciate both and the whole commission, of course, and going through this many meetings, that's for sure.
Yeah. I do have one more question to add to this is what's going on with the urban growth areas? I know there was talk about reviewing those, and I know you've been a little busy working on a comprehensive plan, but what are we going to look forward to with this urban growth area discussion?
Yeah, so if you recall, there was an annexation in the area of Johnson and Bishop over there on the east side of town. And as a result of that annexation petition, council directed the planning commission and staff to take a closer look at some of the designations around the urban growth area. So I'm glad you brought that up, Bubby. That'll be on the planning commission agenda here later in November. We normally meet the fourth Wednesday, but with Thanksgiving being on a Thursday this year, we're going to meet on the third Wednesday.
Okay.
So that'll be on the 17th, 7 o'clock.
I'm missing all the good meetings on Wednesdays. Oh, well. Okay. Any other questions? Well, Jessica, thank you for your closing. I'm sorry I didn't jump in on my question at the end there, but I just think this is really great that we have both comprehensive plans happening at the same time and they're working collaboratively. And I thank you for your time for coming tonight and sharing your wisdom. So I like that we have the link here. Thank you, Carol and Joshua Jones, to the Downtown Master Plan. And do stay tuned for future events with the League of Women Voters. So good night, everyone. Thank you, Alan. And thank
you.
you, RJ.
Very interesting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Mark
you.
Story. Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks.